Okay, so if you're looking for maybe a crash course in creating a genuine magical archive, you've definitely come to the right place. Today, we are diving headfirst into some really fascinating excerpts from a text called The Craft of Keeping a Grimoire.
Mm.
And look, we're not talking about your old high school diary here, definitely not. The source material we've got really emphasizes that this kind of archive is a deeply intentional tool. It's a living document, a sacred record of wisdom, yeah, but also personal experience, and this is crucial, spiritual growth. Think of it like a personalized magical encyclopedia, maybe a diary, maybe a recipe book, and it's kind of all bound together.
Yeah, and what's truly powerful here, I think, is the sheer commitment this process demands. It sort of forces the practitioner to become accountable, really, for their own learning process. So our mission for you today, it's pretty simple, actually. We want you to walk away really understanding the structure, sure, but maybe more importantly, the intention behind this unique kind of archive. We need to show you how a grimoire, or whatever you call it, becomes probably the clearest reflection of an individual's unique path, their discoveries. It's essentially like a personalized operating manual for their spiritual life.
Oh, I love that, an operating manual. That's good. Okay, right, let's unpack this then. And maybe we should start by tackling that first point of confusion we often see, right? The difference between a grimoire and a book of shadows. Because, I mean, the terms get swapped around constantly, but the text suggests there are distinct historic roles for each.
Precisely. Yeah, historically, the distinction was actually quite clear. If you trace the lineage back, you find the grimoire is, well, it's the more structured one, the traditional reference book. It acts much more like a universal practical textbook, the focus of a grimoire. It's entirely on external reference and instruction. It details the mechanics, you know. Its key contents are things like spells, maybe complex rituals, step-by-step instructions, and crucially, those detailed magical correspondences like which herb goes with which planet, that sort of thing. It's really designed to be referenced instantly, before, working, during, maybe even after.
So it's the practitioner's library then, the sort of codified knowledge they rely on day to day.
Exactly, exactly. Then on the other hand, you have the Book of Shadows, or Bus West. Now, while the idea of a personal magical journal is ancient, the actual term Book of Shadows became famously associated with the emergence of Wicca.
Okay, and the big distinction there is the inward focus, is that right?
Yeah.
Less reference, more reflection.
Right. It completely shifts the focus from reference to reflection. The Baupas functions much more like a personal, evolving spiritual journal. The contents are almost entirely internal, reflections on their practice, maybe intuitive insights they gain through meditation or trance work, dreams they've had, and definitely a record of the personal challenges and successes of their own individual journey. It's a psychological archive, perhaps.
That distinction really clarifies why the confusion exists, though.
Yeah.
Because, like the sources point out, most modern practitioners, they just combine them. I mean, it's hard work keeping two massive books going, isn't it? So you kind of end up creating one seamless, magical resource, something that serves both as a reference library and a personal journal. It becomes this sort of hybridized book of everything.
Absolutely. And that hybrid function. That is exactly why the choice of format is so critical. You have to choose a system that can actually handle both things, the structured reference material and the free-flowing creative reflection.
And the beauty of the source material we looked at is the wide variety of accepted formats it talks about. This isn't just about some old, dusty, leather-bound book, though, you know, the traditional handwritten journal certainly appeals to the romantic in us all. That tactile element, you know, the smell of the paper, the feeling of the ink actually flowing, it makes the process feel deeply intimate and personal.
It does. But, you know, for anyone starting out, the handwritten journal can become a bit restrictive pretty quickly, actually, especially when you realize maybe 6 months in that you need to completely reorganize a section.
Yeah, that's where the more practical formats really shine, doesn't it? The sources highly recommend the binder or loose pages approach, especially for beginners, precisely because it offers that radical flexibility. You can rearrange your correspondences easily. You could pull out spells that, well, didn't work. Or maybe expand the section on deity work without needing to rewrite the entire volume from scratch. It really respects the fact that your knowledge base is going to constantly change and evolve.
Then, of course, we have the modern solution, the digital grimoire. This is probably ideal for people who prefer typing or need meticulous organization or, frankly, just need to be able to access their records instantly from anywhere.
Okay, I'm curious about that, though. How do people manage the sacredness of a grimoire when it's just a file on a computer? And how do they make it, you know, effective?
Well, it kind of shifts the ritual. It moves away from the tactile object itself and more towards the process of organization. The sources suggest using tools like dedicated software, maybe something like Evernote or Notion,
Hmm.
where you can create these really deep hyperlinked structures. And the searchability benefit is enormous. I mean, if you want to find every single spell that uses rosemary and relates to protection, you just type in the tags, hashtag rosemary and hashtag protection, for instance. This turns the digital book into an incredibly powerful research tool tailored just for you.
Right. That definitely elevates it beyond just a static text file. It becomes this dynamic, searchable database of your own practice.
Exactly. And of course, we absolutely have to mention the artistic grimoire. This is more the scrapbook style, you could say. It allows for sketches, collages, maybe even pressing real herbs or flowers onto the page. The sources really stress that engaging your creativity here isn't just about decoration. It's actually an act of adding your personal energy and, well, magical power to the record itself. But let's just step back for a second here. Regardless of the format, whether it's leather, digital, or just a simple minder, the essential foundational philosophy seems to be this: don't worry about making it perfect. That comes up again and again. The source material constantly reminds us that it is a living document. It's meant to be messy sometimes, revised, and absolutely meant to grow with you. Perfectionism really is the enemy of consistency in this craft.
That's such a key insight, I think, for anyone maybe hesitating to start. Just get started, right?
Yep.
Okay, so once we've sort of accepted the book won't be pristine, what actually goes on to the pages? Here's where we shift from theory to utility detailing the common sections most practitioners seem to keep, even though, as you say, there are no hard and fast rules.
Yeah, we can mentally divide the content into, let's say, three critical areas: foundation, reference, and practice. The foundation often begins with a specific dedication page. And this isn't just a title page, not at all. It's often used to place a protective charm, maybe a sigil, or write a statement of personal intent, a kind of magical mission statement for the book itself.
And the sources mentioned something really interesting about consecration, did they?
Yes, they did. Many practitioners will actually ritualistically consecrate or bless the physical book before they even write their first word in it. This act is all about setting the energetic boundary, essentially transforming a simple notebook into a powerful tool that's dedicated specifically to the craft.
Okay, so once it's consecrated, you need your reference tool. This is that section dedicated to correspondences. Why is this sort of rapid-fire dictionary so vital?
Well, because successful spell work often relies on stacking resonant energies, right? Aligning things properly. So this section lists the magical associations of pretty much everything you might encounter: herbs and their emotional or spiritual uses, crystals and their metaphysical properties, colors, specific days of the week, the phases of the moon. It's basically your cheat sheet for aligning your intent with material reality. So, for example, if you're planning a ritual that's focused on growth or abundance, you can quickly flip to the correspondence section and confirm, okay, I should probably use green candles, maybe perform the ritual during the waxing moon, and perhaps use the herb basil, which is often associated with prosperity. Makes sense.
Yeah, totally. That moves us seamlessly then into the practice record, the section for spells and rituals. This feels like the core engine of the grimoire.
Oh, absolutely. And this section is really not just about copying instructions from another book. That's a key point. Crucially, the sources emphasize that for every working you do, you must record the specifics: the date, the moon phase, your exact intent, the full ingredients list. But most importantly, you absolutely have to record the outcomes.
Wait, hold on. So if I spend like hours on some complicated protection spell and it's just totally slops, I have to write that down. Wouldn't that just be demoralizing?
The sources are crystal clear on this. If it flopped, you must write it down. That failure, that's vital data, honestly. You need to note any adjustments you made, your subjective feelings during the working itself, and the ultimate result. Even if the result was, well, zero result, this whole process turns your practice from just a kind of superstitious exercise into a real system of empirical learning. You learn from what doesn't work, too.
Huh. So it's less about just being a spiritual person and maybe more about being like a research scientist documenting their lab experiments. I actually really like that analogy. You're building a data set of what actually works for you.
Exactly right. And speaking of data, we also need the seasonal tracker. This is where you'd record the Sabbats. Those are the 8 major seasonal festivals, like the solstices and equinoxes, and also the Esbats, which are typically the full moon rituals. This section helps keep your practice anchored to the natural cycle of the year. You track not just when these events occurred, but your personal reflections on how you celebrated them, what you felt. This allows you to recognize long-term cyclical patterns in your own energy and maybe your intuition over time.
Okay, so that's the sort of heavy reference and data collection side.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the inner work, right? The parts that make this archive truly personal. We're moving into the intuitive and internal content now.
Yes, this is where the Book of Shadows aspect really shines through, even in a combined book. First up, the intuitive records. This would include detailed divination notes. So if you pull a tarot spread, you don't just jot down the cards, you record your immediate personal interpretation of that specific spread in that moment. This is so crucial because your intuition might actually differ quite a bit from the standard textbook meaning sometimes.
And right alongside that, you mentioned the dreams and signs. I really appreciate that the source dedicates a specific space for tracking what might seem like random synchronicities or omens. It feels like it's acknowledging that magical understanding often comes from outside the formal ritual circle, doesn't it?
It really does. That's the process of connecting the internal, maybe subconscious experience to the external world around you. You track that recurring symbol that keeps popping up in your dreams or maybe that unusual encounter you had, and you use the grimoire to look for patterns, connections that you probably wouldn't otherwise notice.
Then we need to chart our relationships with those who might guide us on this path.
Yes, the spiritual connections section. This is for notes about deities and spirits, maybe ancestors or spirit guides you work with. This archive tracks your relationship with them over time. It includes notes on specific offerings they seem to prefer, prayers you use, and records of any deep personal experiences or communications you might have had. It becomes an evolving history of your spiritual allies, essentially.
Okay, and the final, and in many ways, maybe the most valuable category you mentioned is the evolution archive.
Ah,
Just pure personal reflection. So
Mhm.
this is straight up journaling about your successes,
yeah.
but also your challenges and your overall growth in your practice.
This section really is the lifeblood of the grimoire, I think. When you go back and review this years later, it's how you actually measure your magical evolution. You see where you started, maybe the mistakes you learned from and stopped making, and how your understanding of the world, of magic, of yourself has matured.
Right. So once all this incredible information is captured, the next logical step is, well, maintaining the sacredness of the book itself, isn't it? The source material offers some really specific, practical tips for keeping the book feeling powerful and magical.
Absolutely. Top of the list is usually protection. Because this book contains such deeply personal and potentially powerful energetic information, practitioners often ritually protect the book itself. And this isn't just about, locking it away physically. It's more about adding a kind of magical shield, maybe a protective charm, or drawing a sigil on the inside cover, something to guard against unwanted energy, especially if the book might be left where others could potentially read it.
And the very act of writing becomes a ritual in itself, too.
Precisely. The sources really encourage treating the act of recording knowledge with a certain reverence. This could mean something simple, like lighting a specific candle each time you write, or burning a particular incense, maybe just offering a brief prayer or statement of intent before you start recording. This adds a sense of gravity and focus, ensuring the energy you put into the book is intentional and clear.
We've already touched on this, but it seems so important, we should probably stress it again, the importance of honesty.
Oh, absolutely crucial. The value of recording both your successes and your failures. It just cannot be overstated. If you're only recording the triumphs, the book kind of becomes a vanity project, doesn't it, rather than a genuine learning tool. The failures show you where your own weaknesses might lie, or perhaps where you need more research or practice. They refine your craft sometimes more than any victory ever could.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And adding energy. We talked about the artistic grimoire, but even for a more traditional journal, decorating the book is encouraged, right? Using symbols, calligraphy, sketches, even pressing flowers.
Yes. Creativity, again, is seen as an act of infusing your personal energy and power directly into the record. It makes it uniquely yours. And finally, there is the long-term work, maintenance. You really must commit to reviewing regularly. Actually, go back and read your old entries, even the ones from years ago. This helps you reflect properly on your progress, maybe recognize patterns in your magic or your life that you completely missed at the time, and it helps you refine your approach moving forward. The grimoire isn't just written, it's meant to be read and reread. It's a dialogue with your past self.
Wow. Okay, so what does this all mean then? We've seen that the grimoire isn't some static object. It truly embodies the concept of the living book. It's never really finished, is it? Because your learning is never finished. It serves as both this incredible mirror reflecting your growth back at you and also a powerful practical archive of accumulated wisdom.
Synthesis, I think, is the key takeaway here. Keeping a grimoire or a book of shadows is an intensely personal, definitely empowering, and ultimately a really disciplined practice. It's not about slavishly adhering to someone else's rules or copying things perfectly. It's about systematically capturing your unique relationship with the spiritual world, with magic, in a functional, empowering way. It becomes this indispensable companion that documents your entire path, really, maybe from novice towards mastery.
And the source material leaves us with a final, really provocative thought that kind of frames the importance of all this work. It mentions that this archive you create, it can be looked back upon not just by future you, but potentially even by future generations.
Hmm.
We often think about our current needs, our immediate practice, but just consider for a moment the profound power of creating a personal, evolving text like this, something that serves as both a present guide and a future legacy, a potential treasure trove of magical wisdom and self-discovery passed down through time. So maybe pick up your pen or open that document, start that story, and begin building your own archive.